is the Bearcast, presented by Bird Culture Ford. Bird Culture Ford has been in Waco since 1936. Ford is the #1 selling truck in Texas 43 years running. The Bearcast is also presented by WellMed Medical Management and USMD Health System Dallas. Here's Craig Smoke and Grayson Grundhafer.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into a brand new edition of the Bearcast on Sic'Em365.com, Sic'Em 365 Radio. I'm Craig Smoke, Sic'Em 365 Radio host, also writer for Sic'Em365.com, and it is a big championship edition of the Bearcast as both the Baylor men's and women's basketball teams brought home Big 12 titles this weekend, and that was not all in the news cycle. I'm joined as always by Grayson Grundhafer, Director of Broadcasting, also team and recruiting reporter for Sic'Em 365. And Grayson, as we're going to get into some more hardwares headed to Waco, how are we doing this week?
Doing good. I mean, this was a fun week, right? I mean, a lot of storylines, a lot of really good just things to talk about. I mean, Big 12 championships, the hardware just continues to pile up in Waco, and a really intriguing week. And I think that it's also really cool to just see the success in all Baylor sports. It's not just basketball. But yeah, it's been really encouraging to see. And they're the first program in Big 12 history to win all three in the same calendar year: football, basketball, and women's basketball. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a heck of a feat, ain't it?
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And I just saw, I think it was Sean Bell actually retweeting a tweet of someone else's, just talking about the success overall the programs have had here lately. And yeah, it's been a pretty tremendous run. Of course, this weekend, the Baylor men taking home a share of the title, Baylor women taking home the title, and of course, you had football a couple months back, and now they're getting ready for spring ball here coming up. But, I mean, yeah, to have all three of those sports win championships, just pretty remarkable. And I don't think all that shocking in men's basketball, but it was very surprising in football. And I think even for the women, just given the changeover, you felt good they could probably still be who they were. But maybe early on in the season, I know there was a lot of doubts early on, but still – not surprising, but satisfying to see them end up in the same place, although the coaches have changed.
Yeah, I mean, I would say football was obviously pretty surprising. I think that they were able to get the job done and actually win the Big 12 championship. As far as basketball goes, you're right. They're the defending champs, so I think there's an expectation that you go out and win again. But, I mean, you think about the injuries that they had, I mean, and kind of where they were at in the middle of Big 12 play, the games, how many games they were behind Kansas, I don't know. It seemed kind of unlikely that this was going to happen. Then, like you said, women's basketball, a year after losing a legendary coach, they're able to regroup and get things together, start off 0-2 in the Big 12, and it didn't matter. They're able to get the job done, get the #1 seed in the Big 12 tournament, and potentially both could have a #1 seed when the NCAA tournament starts if things fall the right way.
Yes, they're dangling with that right now, and a lot will be determined with the Big 12 tournament and how those close out. But let's go ahead and talk about men's basketball to kick things off. We'll get into the ladies, and then a few football notes. Obviously, it was a big weekend as well, not only in basketball, but the NFL Combine. Baylor with a 7-man contingent out in Indianapolis, and walked away with 2 of the 3 fastest 40 times. We'll get into all those details a little bit later, as well as your mailbag. But the Baylor men wrapping up the regular season, a 26-5 regular season, finished as a top 3 team in the polls as far as the regular season goes. And it was not easy last week. I mean, started off, and we did get to talk about their win over Texas on Big Monday. That capped, a whirlwind 3-day slate where they had Kansas and then Sunday break and then Texas. And it was a sequence of games they had to win to give themselves a chance. They also needed help. They won those games. They got help when TCU beat Kansas and gave themselves therefore an opportunity if they could just win their last game to take a share of the title. And Grayson, they got out monster lead early. I mean, just looked like they were going to blow the doors off of Iowa State and leave no doubts by halftime. And yet by halftime, this 20-plus point lead had whittled down to 10. And even though it was still a 10-point lead, given that it was like 27 points at one stage, I think everybody started to tighten a little bit. And then certainly there was a lot of tightening in the second half and late, as Iowa State not only cut all the way into that deficit to tie the game, but then take the lead at one point. And when all was said and done, what was going to be one of the worst losses in Scott Drew's entire coaching tenure actually turned out to be a championship win in the end. But man, if it wasn't a stressful victory there, even though the beginning seemed like it was going to set the tone for anything but a stressful game. So there you were by the end of it, celebrating, but also like not as much as you probably would have been had the game gone the way it had started out, where you get to just coast, win by 50, and there was never a shadow of a doubt. But 75-68, Baylor men win a share of the Big 12 championship, also the number 2 seed in the Big 12 tournament starting later this week. And they will play Oklahoma in the first round of that tournament on Thursday night. So we'll see what they do there. But they are Big 12 champions. It was just a little dicey there over the weekend.
Yeah, so Iowa State scored 36 points the game before against Oklahoma State. And then through the first 12 minutes of this game, so in, I guess, what is that, 52 minutes of action, they had scored 40 points in between those two games. 40 minutes, they had scored 40 points, or 52 minutes, they scored 40 points. Baylor was up 29-4. I mean, this was an absolute beatdown, and Iowa State looked like a team that just was allergic to scoring the basketball, right? And then all of a sudden, everything changed because from the 8-minute point through the second half, so in 28 minutes, they scored 64 points on Baylor. It was one of those, I couldn't even really describe it. I've never really seen anything quite like that, especially just the way that it started. And then it seemed like Baylor was just going to coast to a win. And then, like you said, Iowa State took a lead with under 7 minutes left in the game, under 6 minutes left in the game. I mean, they were in this, and Baylor had to be up for another dogfight. And once again, they stepped up to the challenge, though. They were able to get the win a Big 12 championship with all the pressure on them. I mean, to give up a 29-4 lead and have all that pressure mounting of, oh man, we just lost our chance at a Big 12 championship. What are we doing? I can't believe this collapsed. They were able to turn things around. James Akinjo, Adam Flagler once again stepping up and getting them this win. I mean, it was a gutsy performance. It was all grit at the end, and now they're going to the Big 12 championship as the 2 seed. They're Big 12 champs. Scott Drew's coach of the year in the conference. I mean, a lot of great things coming for this team. And yes, it was a crazy win, but I feel like it's very symbolic of how this whole season has kind of gone for them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, it's just been that way. It seems like they've had an uphill battle or a huge challenge, and they've had to step up to the plate. And time again, they've been able to do that.
They have. So that was a massive accomplishment on Saturday to get that win and to seal another Big 12 championship, co-championships. I mean, heck, even if Tech had gotten involved and made it a 3-way dance, like, it's still a championship, and you're still going to put that trophy in your case, and it's not going to read co or anything like that. So you know what? Kansas fans can celebrate a title. Baylor fans can celebrate a title. And I think everybody's okay with that. And then, of course, there's a couple more titles left to be played for. But, I mean, you just look at the run men's basketball's been on to deal with what they dealt with this year, complete opposite of last year, where as long as they beat COVID, they were going to win pretty much no questions asked. This year, thanks to injuries, not so much COVID, it's been much more of a guessing game on who's actually available on any given night. And as we see, LJ Cryer remains out. No idea on that front if, we're going to get a surprise appearance in the Big 12 tournament or it's going to be in March or ever. But they're co-Big 12 or they're Big 12 champs, and they're staring straight at a 1 seed right now in terms of the big dance. But a number 2 heading into Kansas City with Oklahoma up first. So just your thoughts on last seeing them last weekend, and now knowing they're getting a little bit of a break and they get ready to kick off this Big 12 tournament. I don't think they're going to go all out to win this tournament in terms of like breaking the bank to win the Big 12 tournament. I mean, if guys need a little bit of rest here and there, I think this is an opportunity to get them as good as they can be before March Madness starts. So what are kind of your expectations heading into KC?
Yeah, I think my expectation is they win the first game. I think they need to figure out a way to beat Oklahoma. And the reason I say that is because right now, out of 129 brackets on Bracket Matrix, they are a number 1 seed consensus. That does not happen often on Bracket Matrix. They're the number 1 team in the nation. They're the number 1 overall seed right now, according to Bracket Matrix, which I find very, very interesting. Now, Gonzaga and Arizona are right behind them, very, very close, which means the margin for error is kind of slim, right? We know Gonzaga is probably going to win the West Coast Conference tournament because, I mean, they do it every year, and the competition's just not really there.
Look at the bracket.
I know.
They basically have to play a game to win the whole thing. I mean, practically.
I mean, yeah. So that's just not really fair to compare, but that also means that if they lose one, they do more damage to themselves, and their wins don't matter as much. Arizona, on the flip side, I think they're only going to have an opportunity at one potential quad 1 win, and that's if things fall right in the Pac-12 tournament. So a win, and I think they definitely give themselves a great opportunity to get the 1 seed and play in Fort Worth in the first round, and then San Antonio in the Sweet 16 and Elite 8, which, I mean, you can't ask for a better setup than that. So that's kind of where I'm at. They need to go out and win this game. They're better than Oklahoma. They've been better than Oklahoma the times that they've played them. They need to go out, win that one. I think they're a 1 seed regardless, but I think if they want to make sure that they're ahead of Arizona, who, you know, Arizona would want to be in the South bracket. They would want to play in San Antonio for the regional. So I think Baylor's got to make sure that they don't get too caught up in the hype and go out and lay an egg in that first round. Find a way to win that, kind of lock things up, and then move forward and try to win the Big 12 championship. Because frankly, if Tech beats Iowa State, then I'm sitting here going, Baylor needs to win that game, because you don't want to lose to Tech 3 times in one season. That's just not what anyone wants to hear on the recruiting trail. That's not what anyone wants to hear in that locker room. So I'm going to say win 1 game, but if they meet Texas Tech in that semifinal, I'm not going to say it's a must win, but it's a game that I just feel like there's going to be a lot of you know what I mean? You want to go out and put your best on display, especially against a rival. So I feel like they'll be a little bit more juiced up for that type of matchup, and that should be one that I think they're going to want to win.
So outside of that win, and now knowing their path a little bit, all Big 12 awards came out as well. Scott Drew voted on by the coaches, the Big 12 Coach of the Year for the 3rd season in a row. You also had JTT was a co-defensive player of the year, other honors as well. Now the AP awards have come out, I just noticed. Those came out, I guess, today, as a matter of fact, here in the last few minutes. So you want to hear the AP awards?
Yeah.
Mark Adams, Coach of the Year. So
no way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mark Adams, Coach of the Year. Agbaji of Kansas, the Player of the Year. So he took home both of those. And then Isaiah Brockington of Iowa State, the Freshman of the Year. James Akinjo, first team, the only first teamer. Adam Flagler, a second teamer. And then that's pretty much it on the AP team as far as that goes. Not as thorough as the all Big 12 as voted on, where you've got 6-man and every, intangible. But AP-wise, you got a first teamer, a second teamer, and that's it with the Akinjo first and Flagler second.
Wow, that's interesting. The Mark Adams one is really interesting. Just because.
Yeah, those replies to that Scott Drew wins Big 12 Coach of the Year tweet, not psychotic at all. Tech and Iowa State fans and Kansas fans, not at all.
Yeah, which is frankly ridiculous. I mean, if you take Ochai Agbaji or something like LJ Cryer was the team's leading scorer. Let's be clear there. So take the leading scorer off of Texas Tech, Bryson Williams, or Ochai Agbaji off of Kansas, and let's see how those two teams are doing. Because I'm telling you, they're not doing very good. Mm-hmm. And Baylor was able to overcome that. They lost the Big 12 Co-Defense Player of the Year, who would have been the Defense Player of the Year had he played the whole season. They lost him as well and still won games. I just think it's frankly ridiculous, all those remarks that I saw, because what Scott Drew has done has been absolutely phenomenal. And yes, they won the national championship, but they lost so much from that team. I mean, we're talking historic Baylor players that they lost. And he still got them to this point where they are the number 1 overall seed in the country right now. I mean, that's just, you don't see that. That's crazy with all the injuries they've had.
I mean, didn't you realize in Lubbock that beating a rival twice is bigger than winning championships? I mean, everybody knows that, right?
It's only head-to-head that matters, right?
So they don't play for championships in Lubbock. They play for beating their rivals and then not playing for championships. Everybody knows that. That's how it goes in Lubbock. I mean, I see these comments. And, I mean, it's like anything else. You can pick any topic and find dumb comments on it. But I can look at Mark Adams winning and go, okay, cool, and not have a problem with it. You know why? Because he's deserving of it.
Right.
And so if you're a Texas Tech fan or a Kansas fan or whatever, like if they would have said Bill Self or Mark Adams or whoever, I would have been like, okay, cool. So I don't know why it's so hard for others if they see Scott Drew to not just go, okay, yeah, he deserves it, rather than being a super homer idiot and going, well, my guy deserves it more. Why? Because he beat Scott Drew twice. Did he win a Big 12 title? No. Oh, okay. So, like we could do that dance, but Scott Drew's deserving. Mark Adams is deserving. Bill Self's deserving. Like, I mean, you could go any way and it's fine. And I don't think it takes like having to break others down, but that's social media. So doesn't matter. Another trophy going in the case in Waco and maybe a couple more depending on how men's basketball can close things out. But a good weekend for them. And there's going to be plenty more talk on the boards throughout the rest of the next few days, but we do have some other topics to discuss. So, co-Big 12 champs, huge deal for the men's basketball program. Meanwhile, for the women, outright Big 12 champs after closing out their schedule on a winning streak. They take care of business against Iowa State earlier in the week, just completely demolished the Cyclones. There's another fan base that complains a lot. That's like maybe public enemy number one right now in terms of, people upset with Baylor's success right now. But they destroy number 8 Iowa State at their place to give themselves, a share of the Big 12 championship, and then turn around and on Saturday just beat the mess out of Texas Tech and win 82-57 to win the outright Big 12 championship. Number 1 seed in the Big 12 women's tournament coming up later this week, also in Kansas City. And so what a closing act here, at least in this first act of the season. And now part 2 coming up with the conference tournament, and then part 3, of course, with March Madness. But the Lady Bears closing on quite a streak and picking up some big wins and leaving no doubts as Big 12 regular season champs in Nikki Collins' first year.
Yeah, and I mean, Nalissa Smith, my goodness. We talked about her last week, but I mean, she is just a walking 30-12 right now. Mm-hmm. It is just ridiculous. She had 35 points, 12 rebounds, 2 steals, shot 13 of 21 from the floor, 8 of 8 from the free throw line. She was just phenomenal. I mean, she is playing so well right now at the right time, and this team is really gelling. So impressed with them. I mean, they were going to beat Tech. Tech's 4-14 the conference. They're not good at all, and Baylor made them look not good. They went out, dominated that game from the get-go, and now they get an opportunity in the Big 12 tournament to make some noise. And I think for them, it's a little bit different than the men, right? So the men's team, if they beat Oklahoma, they're probably going to get whatever region they want, most likely. If they lose that game, I still think they're a 1 seed. Now, for the Baylor women's team, they need some wins if they want to be a 1 seed. I think they're absolutely going to have to win the first game. And then I think against Iowa State and Kansas State, I think they're going to have to win 1 more in order to get that 1 seed locked up. So there's some work to do for the women's basketball team. But if you look at their path, I think it's very manageable. They'll play Oklahoma or Oklahoma State. I'm really hoping they get an opportunity to play, or I'm sorry, who do they get in the second round? Craig, do you have the? Okay, I don't see it here, but I know they're the
round.
1 seed.
I don't have the bracket in front of me.
They trying to make sure I get the year right.
Are you talking about who they play first or who they play in the second round?
Who they play first, but isn't it a play?
Yeah, they play the winner of. Who is that? I'm looking at it right here. Game 4 winner. Where's Game 4 on here?
I don't know, but
it's the winner of Oklahoma and somebody. I don't even. Yeah, it's whatever.
Okay, so I think what I'm kind of looking at here is that Tech and Oklahoma State. Yeah, that's who they're playing the winner of. So I think I'm kind of interested in figuring out, kind of where they go from there. They're going to win that game because those 2 teams, they've absolutely demolished the first 2 games. And then they'll play the winner of Oklahoma and Kansas, who are 2 teams that the Oklahoma one is really interesting because Baylor lost to them twice, right? So I think they want some revenge. I think they'll go out, get a win in that one, and then you go to the championship game where you're probably going to face either Iowa State or Texas. My guess is you'll probably end up facing Iowa State, and you'll get an opportunity to beat them for a 3rd time in a season. So I think they need to get to the championship to be a 1 seed. If they win the Big 12, they are definitely a 1 seed. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. So there's still work left to do for Nikki Collin and company. But, I mean, the way they're playing right now, it's kind of hard to imagine anyone beating them in the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about Iowa State based on the last couple meetings. I mean, maybe Texas, could get hot. I mean, they're kind of on a little hot streak, I think, right now. So, maybe potentially there. But no, I mean, I'm thinking that they're in good position to win this tournament. I think that'd be a massive accomplishment to turn around and win the Big 12 women's tournament. But they'll certainly have a target on their back. I mean, they normally have. You thought that went away there for just a brief moment, but it's back after going and winning the regular season outright. So tremendous accomplishment for them as well. Also got great news with the announced returns of Caitlyn Bickle and also Jamie Asbury. They'll both be coming back next year. So you are going to lose Nalissa Smith, and that's going to be a massive loss, of course, when you're losing probably the number 1 overall WNBA draft pick, and a big person is not, they don't grow on trees in women's basketball. So when you get like a big girl that can do what Nalissa can do, it's kind of rare and hard to come by. So she's going to be missed, but she's got a great run hopefully ahead of her. And there is some experience coming back next year, so that should suit them well.
Yeah, and the way Nalissa's playing right now, I think this team is poised to make a run. I mean, we all forget she was actually a big part of that championship run that they had when they won it in 2019. If you remember the closing, that final game, they got into some foul trouble, and she made some big plays in that one. That was very early in her career. And how she's kind of developed since then, I'm very excited to see what she does in March. I think this could be, one of those tournaments where you look at Nalissa Smith and you go, is she going to be able to carry Baylor to a championship? And I kind of think the answer is starting to turn to yes. I think that she's giving me a lot of reasons to go, man, I think Baylor could actually win a championship if the cards fall right.
Perhaps. I mean, there's some tough teams, but they're among them. And they obviously are playing with some confidence right now. So, the Big 12 women's tournament coming up here later on this week, and Baylor will face the winner of, who'd you say, Oklahoma State and Texas Tech.
Yeah, in the first round.
In the first
Friday.
That's the play-in game. So the Baylor women will face the winner of that game on Friday, and then go from there and see where it takes them. But they would face probably Iowa State or Texas in that championship game, you would think. But we'll see how it goes. But, yeah, congrats to Nikki Collin, Nalissa Smith. They had a bunch of all Big 12 awards as well. And Nalissa Smith, obviously, the player of the year. I don't think there's any surprise about that. Jordan Lewis was a first-teamer as well. And you also had her as newcomer of the year at the same time. So she got a couple of different honors. And who else did they have on here? Sarah Andrews, all Big 12 second team. Jamie Asbury, honorable mention. And then Nalissa on the all defensive team. And I think that about covered the all Big 12 awards. But good weekend for hoops. Let's put it that way. I mean, it was stressful at times in that Iowa State game for the men, but outside of that, I mean, 2 regular season championships, a 1 seed, a 2 seed, bunch of all Big 12, nominees, not nominees, but selections. So yeah, just a great run continues for Baylor hoops.
Yeah. What are your expectations for the men and women just this with the tournament, the Big 12 tournament?
I think the men will win a game, and then after that, I have no idea because I don't think they're going to, empty the gas tank to win this tournament. Yeah. And then for the women, I'd expect them to play for the championship, if not win it. They'd be my favorite to win it, but I just know it's not often that teams win the regular season, turn right around and win the tournament. Is like Texas won the Big 12 tournament men's title last year. You know what I mean? Like it always seems like there's 2 different champs. Mm-hmm. At least it seems that way. But yeah, I mean, I don't have like, anything concrete. I expect the women to get to that final game and play for it, and I'd expect that the men to, knock on the door a little bit. But again, not expecting them to go all out to just try and take home this this trophy this weekend.
Yeah, I think they're both going to play for the championship, though. I just think there's something about...
That'd be great.
I think Tech's going to beat Iowa State, and I just don't think Baylor... I know Baylor's not going to want to empty the gas tank, but there's no way that if they're playing Tech in that second game that they don't say, okay, we need to win this game. Instead of, if it's Iowa State, maybe not, because it's kind of like you said, don't empty the gas tank. As far as the girls, I expect the women's team to win the Big 12 tournament, though.
Russell Wilson's now a Denver Bronco, by the way.
Wow.
As that's breaking out of the NFL. So interesting news there with the Seahawks finally moving on from Russell Wilson in a big trade with the Broncos. That's very interesting. And speaking of the NFL, let's move on to the Combine this past weekend, a banner weekend for Baylor football. Had 7 guys there at the Combine, and it was Tyquan Thornton on the real opening night. I mean, players started arriving on Monday, but you don't start watching stuff on TV really till Thursday when they start doing the on-the-field drills. Those first 2 or 3 days are basically just doctor's appointments and interviews, and we don't care about much of that. So once the players finally did get out there on the field and on our TV screens last Thursday, I was at the Batman, enjoyed it, got out of the theater late, and as I turned on my phone, see all these messages about Tyquan Thornton, and I had written a big preview about the Combine last week, detailing, who all was there and everything, and it made mention of, Tyquan Thornton in the 40, and sure enough, at first thought that he had broke the all-time Combine record because they were having some problems with their times throughout the Combine this past week. But once corrected, it was just a measly 4.28. I mean, garbage. No, in all seriousness, they got ahead of themselves trying to give him like a 4.1 right out of the gates unofficially. Once it was corrected, he was not the fastest man to ever run the 40 at the Combine, but he was up there, and he was the talk of the Combine on Thursday night. So Tyquan doing really nothing surprising in terms of running a fast 40. I think we all would have expected that, but maybe not, flirting with the all-time record. And then that led into, basically the closing act. Baylor got the party started on Thursday night with Tyquan doing what he did, and then to close out the Combine on Sunday, you had Caitlyn Barnes, much anticipated, running the 40. Been talking about him doing that for years. He bust out a 4.23, the second fastest Combine time officially ever, behind only John Ross from back in 2017. So Caitlyn, the second fastest 40 in Combine history, obviously the fastest this year, and among all the positions and all of that. But not to be outdone, JT Woods then goes and rips off a sub 4.4 as well, running in the 4.3s, and then had the final drill of the weekend where he capped off the drills, going through, the catch, make a move, catch, I can't remember what drill it was exactly, but basically finished with him running down to the end zone. All the cornerbacks, the safeties in his group join him running down to the end zone. They do a little celebration, and he spikes the ball, and that's basically how the Combine came to a close, was with JT Woods running a drill and his teammates joining him and having a big, celebration, exclamation point to end the week. So all that to say, Baylor turned some heads this weekend with the 40 times. I think JT Woods helped himself. I think Tyquan and Caitlyn didn't surprise anybody with running fast, but I do think it probably helped boost them just in terms of the conversation. The other guys, Jalen Petrie, didn't do everything, but he did enough to just basically remain who he is and where he is, and nothing's really changing there. Other guys didn't do as much. You only had like maybe a drill or two, so it looks like Pro Day is going to be very busy, and I wrote about all this in my article, but Grayson, this thing popped off with a Baylor 40 and ended with, a Baylor player as well. It wasn't, an event where it guarantees anything in terms of draft picks or things like that, but it was a banner weekend just in terms of free marketing, that's for sure.
Yeah, it definitely was, and I think going forward, this makes that Pro Day very anticipated. I think you're going to see a lot of NFL scouts there. I think that you're going to see Caitlyn Barnes try to go sub 4.2. Taekwon maybe as well. It was really impressive. I do think Taekwon helped himself. And it's more, you got to look a little deeper than just his 40 time, but he was just terrific at everything, right? His vertical was top 10 at the receiver position. His broad jump was top 6 at the receiver position. So I think he did help himself. I know the hand size is something that a lot of people are kind of cautious about. Also his weight, he's only 181 pounds. But people got to remember, he showed up at Baylor really small. Really, really small. And we heard all those rumors. Oh, he's run sub 4.2. He's this and that. And man, he proved it. I don't doubt it at all now. That 4.28 is so impressive. And I think he turned some heads and definitely helped himself going forward. I know Treston Ebner ran a 4.43. I think that's good for him as well.
It was good. It got totally overshadowed by everybody else, though, yeah.
But that's really good. He measured in at 2.06 as well, I believe, which great weight for him. That's actually a very, very impressive number to me, and one that I think got overlooked a little bit. Caitlyn Barnes, the speed. I'm hoping that speed just makes someone draft him, because there was some people were nervous whether he was going to get drafted, me included, just based on everything I heard.
I'll say, just from reading tea leaves and talking to people and interviews we've done, yeah, he's a borderline draft pick because he's fast, but I don't think this will come as a shock to anybody. Fantastic athlete. But what's the thing about fantastic athletes sometimes is the effort level. Yeah. Like, Caitlin's a great athlete, could be on every play, but he's not on every, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's not always there every play.
Yeah,
so.
I agree, but I think running like this will change. I think he's going to get drafted now. And I know that's crazy. Like, just because he's fast, he's getting drafted. Well, yeah, because this is the number 1 time ever by a cornerback at the NFL Combine. That's just insanity. So I think he'll be drafted. Everyone else looked good. I think Terrell Bernard helped himself. I think, again, another guy that got overshadowed was Terrell Bernard just because he didn't run his 40. But he was really good. His testing times were a little better than I thought. 35.5-inch vertical, really impressive. 4.25 shuttle, also very, very solid broad jump. So impressed by him at 224 pounds. I think his draft stock got helped as well. So lots of good things. JT Woods is climbing up draft boards, like you mentioned. I think everything was positive. The Baylor marketing was great as well. Now everyone knows about how fast Baylor is, and these Matt Rule recruits, kind of what the display that they put on, because they were recruited as guys with athleticism. And boy, oh boy, did they show it. So really impressive.
And Petrie and Bernard going back to Bryles. You got to go all the way back there for those guys. So, yeah.
Well, Bernard was Rule.
Yeah, but they were already talking to him before that. Phil Bennett has talked about that quite a bit. But that they had identified and talked to him. But regardless, Petrie for sure, and a little shade of Bernard there. But yeah, credit to Matt Rule, credit to the staff previous, credit to this staff here, because they developed in the last 2 years, and I think they all got better under Dave Aranda and company as they put in the time with this staff. So kind of molded by a few different people, but in the end, some jewels for Baylor at the Combine and hopefully in the draft, and hopefully then, of course, in the NFL for a long time to come. That's the thing, is not just getting there, it's sticking there. And we've seen plenty of really good Baylor players kind of come and go through the league, and we've seen maybe unexpected guys stick around for a while. And, the studs that you think are going to be like all pros that don't make a dent. It's an inexact science, but I feel pretty good about this crop of players. So they definitely helped themselves this weekend. And now it's waiting for Pro Day and seeing how times unfold at Pro Day. But based on the article I wrote and the workouts that were done and not done, there's going to be a lot of activity at Baylor Pro Day, including for the guys who are at the Combine. There are a lot of drills that they did not do that they will probably do in Waco here in a couple of weeks. So we've got that to look forward to as well. So anything else football-wise?
I don't think so. Again, like you said, the social media traction was just so cool to see.
That was a big deal,
my goodness. Everyone was tweeting about these Baylor guys. So, yeah, it was just a really cool moment. I think great to put Baylor on the map once again. You had people writing articles about Baylor football just because they finally saw, this NFL production that they're going to have this year.
Yeah, pretty crazy. And think that Tariq Woolen ran the second fastest, and he was nearly a Baylor guy.
He was. He chose UTSA over Baylor.
Yeah,
Crazy.
and you know what? It actually worked out for him. So, kudos to him at the time. Given where Baylor was, it was just more like salt in the wound when he chose UTSA. But, it worked out for him. It worked out for Baylor. I mean, shoot, they all ended up champions and, winning games and in the same spot when it was all said and done. So it just would have been cool, though, to have his speed as well. And you'd have had the top 340 guys potentially. But you got 2 of the top 3, so that's still pretty salty. Good week for football, good week for basketball. Good week for baseball as well, as they went to the Shriners Classic down in Houston. Baseball had the big series weekend last week against Duke. They did, before they took part in the Shriners Classic, face off with Rice as they made their way down to Houston, and got a win over the Owls, 9-0 shutout, and then turned around and got the Shriners Classic underway. Huge win over UCLA to kick things off with a massive pitching performance and a 2-1 win against the Bruins. So a top 25-ish win, because the baseball polls are a little more inexact. But, some polls, top 25. Some polls, not there, but top 25-ish win against UCLA. Top 25 loss against Tennessee followed that, where they were close, and then Tennessee just broke it open, won 10-5. So split the games there, and then they left them on Sunday night to close out the Classic, and they closed it out in a big way, a 9-6 win over top 10 LSU to finish with a 2-1 record, which was tied with 2 or 3 other teams for the top record. It's not like a bracket or whatever. So they finished the top with some others at 2-1. And, man, that was a pretty impressive weekend given the competition level, and finishing 3-1 overall on the week with that Rice game as well added in there. So they're above 500 just barely, but they are collecting some nice wins, including down there at the Shriners Classic.
Yeah, and Tyler Thomas put on a display against UCLA. I mean, he went out and won them that game. 8 2/3 innings, 10 strikeouts. He was just phenomenal. His control has been really special this year, and it was something that was his biggest problem for the longest time. He didn't have a single walk in this game. It kind of stunk because at the end there were a couple hits on him, and so they had to pull him and bring in the freshman Mason Marriott, and oh my gosh, they almost gave up that game. But they were able to rally, able to get an out, finally get the final out of the game after a walk and a hit by pitch. So it was a walk, a hit by pitch, and he was down in a 3-0 count. And he was somehow able to get out of it. It was really impressive by the freshman, and I posted on the boards, but I think that's going to be a huge moment for him going forward. I mean, that's a top 25 team. All the odds are against you. Can you get one out? And he was able to do it at the end of the day. Tyler Thomas was special. He was Big 12 Pitcher of the Week. He was phenomenal. I mean, it was so special to see, and I think Baylor has a Friday guy that they're going to feel really good about the rest of the season, and that's a luxury that a lot of teams don't have. Now, going into the second game, I felt like Tennessee was the best team they were going to play this weekend, and Tennessee roughed them up a little bit. I mean, they were able to get hits, get runs, scored 10 runs on Baylor. That was a tough game. Tennessee was a better team on that day, and that happens. But for them to bounce back against LSU the way that they did, I found that to be really special. The offense really got it clicking, came together, and they were able to make things happen, which is not something that we've said about them throughout the season. It's kind of been a struggle at times at the plate. But Jack Pineda went out there, had a great game. Trey Richardson continues to play really well, and Kyle Nevin as well. So it was a very impressive team performance. It all started off with Tyler Thomas, but ended with just a great overall team effort against LSU. And that's 2 top 25 teams that Baylor beat this week. And I just think that's more signs of good things to come.
Yeah, it should be. They're on a good little run right now. So congrats to Steve Rodriguez and company. And now it's on to the rest of the long haul. Doesn't stop anytime soon. So ACU coming up on Wednesday, and then a home series, which they haven't been at home in a couple of weekends. So that'll be nice. They'll have Columbia out of the Ivy League coming on down to Baylor Ballpark. So that begins this Friday afternoon. So you're out in Abilene, catch them on Wednesday. But otherwise, catch them in Waco against Columbia starting this weekend. And then they'll have a TCU series at home following that. So they're about to be at home quite a bit Just a couple games on the road over the next couple of weeks, but they have been on the road for a while. So that, unless you want to get into Brittany Griner in Russia, I think we covered everything. And I'm not trying to make light of that, but no, there's no update there either that I'm aware of, and I don't think there will be for probably quite some time, unfortunately. But I wrote a little bit about that in the good, the bad, the ugly. So tough deal there. But yeah, overall, a great week for Baylor athletics. A couple Big 12 hoops titles and a successful combine where your guys kind of headlined the whole deal. I mean, they're definitely some of the memories that will come from this combine for most people. And then baseball, big wins and so on and so forth. So let's get in the mailbag. Start off with the Bumbling Bear. In the most recent bracketology on ESPN, Baylor's region has Duke at 2, Tennessee 3, UCLA 4, Alabama 5, Michigan State 8. If the bracket were to hold true, which of these matchups would you least want Baylor to face prior to the Final Four and why?
I'm joking about this, but I don't want to see Alabama after what Alabama did to Baylor early in the year. Right. But I'm joking. Alabama would be a fine matchup. Baylor would be able to beat them, I think. UCLA is a tough 4 seed. I mean, that team was in the Final Four a year ago. They still have a lot of NBA talent. Tennessee runs a 3-guard lineup, which is really interesting. They're able to spread the floor a little bit. They play really good defense. So, I mean, the way I'm looking at this region, I mean, this is a tough region. Michigan State, Baylor would handle just fine, but I don't want to play Duke. No. I'm sorry, but I'm out on playing Duke in the Elite Eight because I just don't think there's any way there's not going to be at least a little bias if Duke makes it to the Elite Eight. That you might as well just push them into the Final Four. I mean, the opportunity for ratings, and I'm not going to say that anything's rigged, but I am going to say that I think Coach K might get a favorable whistle if a Final Four is on the line. So I would stay away from them, and also they have NBA talent, right? Paolo Banchero is phenomenal. So yeah, I think that'd be a tough matchup, and I wouldn't want to play them.
All right, appreciate the question, and I'm the same. I wouldn't want to play Duke in a tournament. I mean, that's just you're playing them and perhaps others like you kind of referred to, and
5 on 8.
Yeah, give me Bama in a basketball tournament versus Duke. I mean, come on, who'd you rather play in the football tournament, Alabama or Duke? You know, it's like I'd rather play Duke in that scenario. Brown BW would love for someone to give us a rundown on next year's basketball men and women. What will they look like? Especially like to know what the women's post players will look like. Well, you have any insight on next year? I have none because this season's still very much going on right now, but looking ahead a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, I think on the women's side, they're going to have to hit the transfer portal for a post. I think they will. I think they'll go out and try to add someone to the roster that's not currently on the roster. The recruiting class is pretty good, but I think they probably want to develop those young girls a little bit more than trying to force them into action. Getting Bickle back is really nice. I think that helps solidify some depth down there, but I do think they're going to try to get a big to add to the fold. And then also, you get Jade Nowens, who's been playing a lot better recently. She'll be back and probably take over one of the guard spots. So, yeah, you enter her into the lineup. You go out and add a transfer, and I think they're looking at a team that could go out and compete for the Big 12 championship again. I don't see any reason why not. As far as the men's side go, that is a really tough question. And the reason why I say is because we don't know for sure who's coming back.
Yeah, we won't know for like another month probably.
Right, so it's tough because, Flo Thamba, if he comes back, that's a possibility. If James Akinjo comes back, if Adam Flagler comes back, this team looks totally different. Are Kendall Brown and Jeremy Sohan coming back? I don't know. So let's just go with, how about they lose everyone? If they lose Akinjo, Sohan, Kendall Brown, Flo Thamba,
Meyer.
I think Meyer's pretty much, I think that's foregone conclusion. But yeah, you lose him too. Yeah, they're going to have to do some searching in the transfer portal for sure for a wing. They're definitely going to have to try to find a wing to add to the table. You'll get Cryer back. I think Flagler will be back as well. So, Cryer, Flagler, Keontae George, go get another wing that can play kind of that stretch four mold, kind of like a Sohan or Kendall Brown. And then, you wait for Everyday John to come back. So they're going to have to go add another big probably because I don't think Josh O is going to be ready to be a full-time starter immediately as a freshman. So a lot of guys that they would have to go out and add. You'll get Langston Love back. He'll give you some depth. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of up in the air with the men's side just because of how many moving parts there are with guys staying and leaving. But in general, I can tell you this. I think they are going to be really, really good next year because I think Keontae George is going to be a top 5 NBA pick.
That's a heavy praise, but hey, the way they're reloading and not rebuilding, it wouldn't surprise me if they got another ace up their sleeve. I mean,
he's special, man. That kid he could be a true difference maker. And if the right guys return, I think this team will probably be the odds-on favorite to win the national championship.
Wow. Well, let's get there first, but that is something to look forward to potentially. Scotty B does get into, I guess, answering the question here. I'm sure the women will hit the transfer portal or try to get another post player in this current class. Currently, they have Kyla Abraham, who's 6'4", at forward coming in next year. I know they have 3 guards coming in, 6'1", 6'2", and generally, they probably hit the transfer portal to add more depth to the point of 12 or 13 players. Well, I sure hope they have more than 6 or 7 like they've had all year this year. Basically, the men have 2 almost in so many ways.
Injury enforced, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying, more than one player off the bench on a regular basis would be nice for both squads to have, consistently. Let's see, Scotty B, where would you rank the Baylor O-line group in comparison to the rest of the country, like top 20 or top 10?
I think they'll probably be, so last year, what do we all think they were? I think
top 20 for sure.
They were top 20, yeah, but were they top 10? Like if they played Georgia, would they have been able to run the ball?
I don't know, because I do think a lot of it is I think the players all got better. I think their confidence and I think their strength and I think all the intangibles got better, but I also think the scheme helped tremendously, obviously. I don't know that I would just go line them up against anybody and say they're a top 5 O-line in the country. No.
Right. I don't think they're top 5. I'm not quite sure if they're top 10.
Yeah.
I think they're more like top 15. I think around there. They return a lot, and they have some upside with Khalil Keith improving and Connor Galvin taking another step. Jacob Gall, Grant Miller. They have a lot of pieces that I think are really good. But they also had some games where they did struggle to run the football. And so I wonder against the elite competition, would they have been able to just turn around and hand the ball off? I don't know the answer to that. So I think I'd put it at top 15 right now.
Yeah, and I think, we didn't see so much out of the passing game last year either. It was like the defense was such a big part of what they did as well. And then the offensive line come in there and grind it out and get first downs. They were a great O-line. But, yeah, I don't know that I'd put them A+ and top 5 guaranteed or anything like that. There's room for improvement for sure.
Yeah, top 5 to me is you put the ball out on the field against anyone and you're running the ball for 150 yards.
Yeah.
And I don't think they were doing that against Georgia or the elite defenses, but hey, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong on that.
Alfanito will close us out here regarding March Madness expectations for men's basketball. Would you agree with the following, or if not, what are your expectations? All right, so first one, anything less than a Sweet 16 appearance would be a disappointment.
If they're a number 1 seed, yeah. I think that has to be a disappointment if you don't make it the Sweet 16.
Yeah, given their team and given, the I know the defending champs doesn't really have anything to do with it, but, I don't know. That does give them a little extra mojo going into this thing in so many ways. But just with the team they have, if they don't get a couple rounds deep, that'd be disappointing for sure. Elite 8 showing would be a very good season.
Absolutely. That's a great season, in my opinion.
Yeah, you replace basically your whole starting lineup from a national title team, and you go to the Elite 8 the next year. Yeah,
without your top scorer and one of the best defense players in the country.
That's
a great year.
For the majority of the year. Yeah, I'd be okay with Elite 8. And then the final one, Final 4 or better exceeds expectations and is icing on the cake.
I'm not going to say Elite 8 exceeds expectations.
No, Final
but
4.
It does. I know, but I'm just kind of looking back at the last one. Elite 8 kind of is almost exceeding expectations, in my opinion. And I'm not saying that Baylor shouldn't be good enough to get there, but Elite 8 with the adversity that they've faced, that is just such an outstanding year. A Final 4 would be... I'm just going to say it. That's the best coaching job Scott Drew's done. And I know they won a national championship last year, but if they make a Final 4, with this roster, I think it's his best coaching job ever. That's how good I think it would be.
Yeah, that'd be pretty incredible. So to answer all of your questions, that'd be pretty great pretty much on all of those. Final 4 would be an incredible run, and they're certainly capable of it. A lot's going to come into play, like how healthy can they remain, how healthy can they get, what are the matchups, where are they, all those types of different things. But co-Big 12 champs, another trophy added, and Man, I'd love to just go over there and take a glance at like all that they've added over the last couple of years. I mean, you start counting like Big 12 awards and whatnot too. Ridiculous. And the women cleaning up as well. So incredible weekend really for Baylor athletics. And then what the guys did at the combine to bring all of that attention to the football program. I mean, Aranda and them had to be over the moon with all the free promotional advertising they got from Rich Eisen and everybody else that was, following along. And then social media, like the hits were crazy over Taekwon and Caitlyn and
for sure
and all of that. So that was a good weekend for football, as well as basketball and baseball. Can't forget them. And I know that other sports as well, like softball split and so on. So spring's in full swing. And now we're getting to tournament time for hoops and got spring drills that'll be coming up here pretty soon. So a lot to look forward to. It's not going to slow down anytime soon. But anything before we go here, Grayson?
No, I don't think so. This was a great week. This was a great opportunity for Baylor sports, and it really showed. It was really, really impressive. And just adding more trophies, right? Adding more for the brand like Mac Rhodes always talks about. So just overall, I think any Baylor fan should be really, really excited and really proud about what the Baylor Athletics did over the weekend.
Yeah, should be. If you're not, and I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what you're expecting because this was pretty good. But this has been a fun episode to do, just given all the moving pieces and kind of where we are on the calendar. Look forward to seeing the Big 12 tournament shake out this weekend. And we'll be hearing from Mac Rhodes on the show as well. So I'm sure he's got a lot of thoughts on what was a very busy weekend for Baylor athletics. I'll also have Jalen Petrie among others. So stay tuned to Sic'Em 365 Radio. Stay glued to the boards as well. But until next time, thanks to Jack and Armstrong behind the scenes. For Grayson, I'm Craig Smoke, and this has been the Bearcast on Sic'Em365.com.